Hi, my name is Jesse Lynn.
And I'm Angela Lynn. Welcome back to another episode of But Where Are You Really From? Today we're talking about White Lotus Season 3. And since the finale just aired this week, we are doing a bit of a full season shockers reflection episode. Just want to kind of look at season in review and for each of us, what were the most bizarro, shocking moments, because I think there were a lot this season. And I, for one, just like general statement, I was pleasantly surprised with the season because I think when I first watched the first episode, I was kind of like meh. Like, it was like, oh, same plot, someone dies, and but I wasn't expecting too much. And I was pleasantly surprised throughout the season. Like, oh, weirder things are happening than like I would have guessed from what they could have planned for this season. So I will start with that. Just before we go into any details, obviously, massive spoiler alert. So if you haven't finished watching season 3 of White Lotus, don't listen if you care about spoilers, because all we're going to do is talk about the craziest shit that jumped out at us. So stop listening if you don't want to have that ruin your experience. All right. For me, my most there were two. So one was obviously the brother on brother threesome situation, which was what? And then the other one for me was the scene between Rick and Frank when they're sitting in the cocktail bar and Frank goes on this really wacko, bizarro monologue about how he went from being just like full-on sex addict to like basically wanting to be banged himself as a little Asian girl by himself, this whole thing. And then how all of that made him a Buddhist. Yeah, those are my top two. Not counting the season finale, just like in review, those were like, they stuck in my head long after watching the episodes, and I was like ruminating about them well after watching.
Yeah, I would agree with those two. I would also say that scene that the slutty girlfriend of Gary was trying to petition Patrick Schwarzenegger's character to have this like cuckolding fantasy thing. That was pretty out there for me.
I don't know why that did not really shock me at all. I was like, that's a boring plotline.
That came like after the brother interaction scene, which I think at that point you were like, wait, what is happening now? So it was kind of like a, almost like an afterthought. I also felt like Gary's inclusion in this season was a shocker to me. I wasn't expecting to see him come back. And I also felt like, oh my, Belinda at the end, I was really disappointed in that character. Like, so disappointed. And it was such obvious, like, she was doing exactly what Tanya did to her to Pornchai, and like no recognition of that at all was a shocker. Like, I know kind of the whole premise of the show is like that, where it's like nobody learns any lessons, but I was just really surprised that she about-faced on that so quickly.
I wasn't surprised she did it, I guess. I was surprised she didn't, have any reflection on like, oh, I'm doing literally the same shit. Especially the fact that it was about like they were going to open a spot together. It's like, girl, that's literally your storyline from season 1. But yeah, for me also just going to the like the moral of the story of White Lotus in general, besides people are awful, I feel like that's his like running theme, especially rich people. It was so obvious by the end that he's like, pure, truly good people don't win. Like, clearly was his thesis, because Pornchai is like just a pure soul. He gets gypped completely by Belinda. Guy Talk gets corrupted because he the whole time was struggling with, like, he mentioned Buddha so many times where he's like, maybe I'm not cut out for this violence and I don't want to hurt anybody. And then at the end he shoots the guy and then is so happy driving off hotel owner lady in the SUV as a new bodyguard. And then he wins over Mook, aka Lisa from Blackpink, just because he finally like got his promotion and is now moving up. And the social ladder is like, oh man.
On one hand, I'm like, yes, because he's struggled so much with this, like, I don't want to be a violent person, and like, what would Buddha think about me being violent? But then in a way, things kind of just line up for him. And he does have to be violent in the end because he does shoot Rick. Also, the 2 bodyguards that were already there were killed. So he kind of like, all those things kind of like lined up for him. It's like good outcome for him in a way, but also in a like a no lessons learned kind of thing. Like he didn't really take anything away from that.
Exactly. The lesson was that you have to be gruesome to get ahead. And lucky, of course, like those guys died. So, you know, but like same with Belinda. She struggled with the morality of taking blood money when it was only $100,000. And then suddenly when it's like an unfathomable amount of money for her, she's like, what morals? I don't give a shit. Yeah, I'm going to cover for your murder. In the end, if the number's high enough or the status promotion's high enough, everyone has a number, seems to be like the creator's kind of running thesis. It's kind of sad, but it's, I guess he's trying to show like more realistic, of course, exaggerated reality, but his thesis is very clearly like goodness does not win. Like being a little blah is what wins in the end. Because also Lucius Malfoy, I just kept calling him Lucius the whole time, but he just like lucks out the whole time. I'm like, girl, your son lives after he ingests all that suicide seed shit that you very haphazardly left out also afterwards.
That was a shocker for me. From a hygiene perspective, who just dumps stuff back into a blender that's dirty and then blends it?
So I thought about that, but also I was like, oh, because at first I was like, this is unbelievable to me that someone would just like blend like random crap that's left in the blender. But he made that whole shtick the previous night of like, no, you can't have the pina colada because you're not 21. So I think he was just like, oh, whatever, it's here. Like, I'm gonna finally drink it because you wouldn't let me drink it last night. So you didn't notice there's still some in the blender. So I'm just going to put it in with the protein powder. I think that's why he did it. But if it were just some like gross random leftover, I don't think he would have used it. I think it was the whole lead up of Lucius Malfoy kept telling him, you can't have it. So then he's like, I'm gonna have it. But yeah, the fact that he came back, I was like, okay, so this guy is like really just lucking out in all these things. He just happens to be able to steal this gun and then has no consequences for that. He like almost murders his whole family with the pina coladas, but even though everyone drank a sip, it wasn't enough for them to feel anything. He was able to save them. His son literally ingests an entire thing of all the suicide seeds and comes back to life. Okay. And you know what was really unbelievable to me? They said they froze his accounts like 5 episodes ago.
Yeah.
So I was debating this with Ramona. I was like, okay, maybe what they're doing is charging everything to the room. So then like things are still processing because, you know, nothing happens until you check out. But then they checked out and they're on the boat. I'm like, your credit card should have been declined. Like, that should have been found out at checkout that everything blew up already.
But maybe that's what you're supposed to assume from that, is that nothing happened to him, even though he doesn't actually know yet at the end of it, right? Because they just got all their phones back. So it's actually unclear if he is suffering any consequence. And they don't really clearly show if the family looking at their phone had their reactions.
You've heard me complain about how weird it is to be an American-born Mandarin speaker because I grew up speaking Mandarin at home and have a passing native accent, but simultaneously sound like a child when trying to talk about real things. Since I realized no one out there was catering to people like us and decided, I'm just going to do it myself. I teamed up with my native Taiwanese Mandarin language teacher to create Real You Mandarin, a self-paced online Mandarin course built specifically for ABCs and ABTs. All of our content is video-based, realistic dialogues centered on topics you'd actually want to talk about, from dating and pop culture to media representation and growing up as a minority in a majority society. You'll learn the relevant vocabulary in the context you actually use them and be able to practice them daily with pre-built digital flashcards. You'll also be able to practice speaking by shadowing, repeating back, or following along with all of these dialogues to practice speaking at natural speed with the right pronunciations. Check out the course at realumandarin.com and get 10% off using promo code WhereAreYouFrom10. Let us help you express the real you when you speak Mandarin. Hey listeners, wondering how you can support us? The biggest way is by increasing our visibility by following us on Instagram at Where Are You From Pod, on TikTok at But Where Are You Really From, subscribing to our YouTube channel under But Where Are You Really From Podcast, rating and reviewing us on Apple Podcasts, and telling your friends. The more people we can get to listen to the show, the more we can continue spotlighting different perspectives and stories. And if you feel so inclined, we're also accepting donations at buymeacoffee.com/whereareyouFrom. Thanks, y'all.
I also feel like, I think like in the last episode, almost every character had like a very sudden about face, which I wasn't entirely sold on. Like, for example, Piper being like, oh, I want to do this meditation center thing. And she stays one night and immediately she's like, I don't want to do this. And I'm kind of like, really? Like, you're gonna about face so quickly on this after like your whole shtick the whole season was like you're feeling a certain kind of way and you want to do this particular thing. And I kind of get like, okay, you can have this like polarizing experience that changes your perspective, which many of the characters did, but it was like so extreme and so quick that I was like, what's happening now? And same with Carrie Coon's character, where at the end she's crying, she's like, I love this, like I love being with you guys and time blah blah blah. I'm like, I'm expecting her to just like shit on all of these bitches, and I'm like, come on.
That made no sense to me whatsoever. I was like, I thought you hated these girls. Like, I definitely expected a full blow up of like the three women. And that did happen earlier, you know, in a different episode. But I didn't think they were going to leave still being friends and like better friends, if anything. So that felt really weird from like a plot line standpoint for me. The Piper part felt so genuine for me, honestly. I was like, you're just a rich bitch who could not face that you're a rich bitch. The line that got me that I was dying, which was like, I could taste that it wasn't organic. I'm like, I can't. And you know, obviously I didn't do a 1 year meditation retreat, but I did the 10-day silent meditation retreat, and you eat vegetarian, Buddhist-ish food, and you have no choice. It's no pickiness whatsoever. Also, it's free, so just shut your mouth. Like, take what you can get. But I guess if she's of that level of wealth, right, it's kind of like, oh, what is this, like poor people food for the first time in my life? It felt jarring, surely. Like, hearing that felt really jarring, but I was like, I believe this completely. Like, if you put yourself in the shoes of an uber wealthy, spoiled brat girl who has never had to want for anything in her life and like lives in this bubble essentially, and then you dream of like, oh, I'm actually a really good person, I don't need all this stuff, but you've never been in a situation where you actually don't have all that stuff, and then you finally put yourself in that situation. Like, I could very easily see someone like her being like, oh shit, that was all just a puff of smoke and I'm actually
Could never be me, you know, started from the bottom, so we know what it is like.
Dude, her room was massive too. Okay, again, Ramona and I were commenting on it the whole episode because we did the silent meditation retreat. The rooms that you actually have in those kinds of situations, mine was like half the size, a third of the size that she had, and she basically had like an old colonial, like beautiful room, and she was complaining about that. I was like, I got this like rickety, like barely standing like bed frame that's like very stale, and it's just like a place to sleep, that's it. I was like, girl, you have no idea.
I also really thought it was funny the way that I felt like Mike White was commenting on this whole trend around wellness, because it's like none of the characters pick what's ultimately good for them, and they go back to kind of like the source of their discomfort or like what makes them unhappy. So like the Carrie Coon example was great, because I'm like, why are you going back to these girls who, like, I guess you are friends, but like they clearly don't treat you well, and they're not addressing like the underlying behaviors that are problematic. They're just kind of being like, well, we're great friends and we're gonna be great friends forever. I'm like, okay, like they don't treat you very nicely, girl. Like, why do you want to go back to that? Parker Posey's is like the most extreme, right? She's like, I need a lorazepam for my massage, or she like go for the massage to the lorazepam. I'm like, you already just had a wellness experience. Don't, what?
She was the best character, let's be real. If you watch any of the press interviews, like from the press tour with all the cast, they're all doing the impression of her because it's so good. Yeah, speaking of, I mean, I think he tried to show like people try to change, but it's really hard to keep that change up. So there are like two standout moments for me. One was Frank, right? Like the side friend character, but like he went through this very dramatic change where he went from like a sex addict, like fucking weirdo, to like an extreme sober Buddhist. And then it just took like one extremely uncomfortable situation for him to be like, I need to drink, and then went on a complete bender. But in the end, you see him back in a temple praying. So, you know, he's trying. So who knows if he'll come back. But related to that, then Rick, in the end, I mean, before he shoots his own dad, which I saw that coming, man. I called that, except I kind of lost faith in myself that the guy was his dad, because when he did almost kill him at the house, I would have expected the guy to like fess up at that point, be like, I am your dad, dumbass. You know, like I thought he would have said that. And because he didn't say that, I was like, oh, maybe I was wrong. Like maybe he's not the dad. So when that came out, I was like, ugh, mama. But anyways, Rick tried. He tried to seek out the, you know, the therapist lady, the counseling woman, to like calm himself down. But then the timing didn't work out. And then he's like, okay, forget it. I'm like, I'm not holding this in anymore. So I think Mike White tried to show like people want to change. They know that it's best for them to change, but it's ultimately like incredibly hard, and most people can't really change their worst habits, especially, or worst like trigger points that they're operating from.
I did take issue with Rick's whole motivation, because I'm like, you're literally gonna go off of the word of one person to go on your life vendetta against this man that you have no proof did anything, and you don't even know your dad. That's crazy. That's crazy.
It was really bizarre how like attached he was to that story, although I think a lot of people have this lore that people don't lie on their deathbeds. Usually people tell the truth on their deathbed because they don't want to leave this earth with like secrets or like lies or whatever. So I think that's why he believed it. But for me, the entire time, I agree with you. I was like, that's enough for you to want to kill somebody? Like you didn't even know him. But yeah, the whole time when he's like, he ruined my life, I'm like, you seem to be wealthy enough to like come on this very expensive resort trip endlessly. I don't think your life is ruined. Oh, also speaking of people who like don't learn their lessons, and I was just like screaming the whole time, the entire relationship between Rick and Chelsea, I was like, he doesn't even respect you. He thinks you're an idiot, has called you as such to your face, and you just have this like undying devotion for him. But then she lets it out at one point where she says, oh, he's just so broken and I can fix him, essentially, or like I'm gonna be his savior. I'm like, oh, you're one of those. Like she's just in it to be the fixer, to feel like she is this like guardian angel thing. So I don't really know even if she really loved Rick that much, or if she just loved being in that position of being the like, you know, the glue. But she took so much shit from him. He just like dumped her all the time, left her explicitly, called her stupid, like literally just didn't care. She did almost die multiple times and he like did not care.
Yeah, I want to go back to that example of where you said he was seeking out, you know, counsel from the therapist. I think it's just another example of like how you pick something that is just not like, it's seeking like wellness in an official capacity when you don't need to go that deep, because literally Chelsea is chasing him, being like, don't do whatever you're about to do. It's a bad idea. I'm here. I love you. Let's go hang out at this resort. And he's like, I need to talk to this lady to like distress. I'm like, come on, dude. Like, what?
Well, I think on that note, you know, we've just kind of like run amok on all these bizarro moments and thoughts that we've had in our head watching this whole season, but so much happened in this season. And yeah, I very much enjoyed season 3. So listeners, tell us what you thought. If you watched White Lotus season 3 this time, what was the most standout moment for you? What was a shocker? What was a what the heck? I'm so disappointed. Whatever stood out to you, let us know in the comments of wherever you're currently listening to or watching this, and come back next week because we will have another fresh episode for you then. And until then, 再见, bitches.